Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Well, yeah, belatedly, I suppose, yes.
Well, yeah, you know, it's still the New Year.
Good day.
Good night.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Goodness.
Loch Ness.
Oh, you got it again!
Ba-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show.
Welcome. Willkommen.
I'm not Benji.
And I'm certainly not Nick, but we both have one thing in common. We chat about cult TV, don't we?
We do.
And we love it, don't we? It's rather wonderful. You name it, obscurities from the past, some less obscure things from basically stuff from the past. We just go on about, yeah. But it's all good fun. We enjoy it.
Yeah, the basis of the show is that at the end of every show we spontaneously select
spontaneously combust.
We spontaneously select a title to talk about the following week, and then we go off and watch it and we talk about it the next week. We also read out your emails to us, sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, and we also talk about what we've been watching this week, and, to use the word also far too much, we speak to Jamie Anderson, and we phone him anyway and see if he's in. Jamie Anderson, the son of Jerry Anderson, the creator of Thunderbirds and all those fantastic things. He's a good mate of ours, and so we bother him, and he mostly sounds quite exasperated.
But that's what you do to good mates, you bother them. That's how
exactly.
It's all part of the friendship.
Are you my mate? Are you my mate? Shut up!
Shut up! Leave me alone, you fool! You old fool! I just started laughing to myself because I just went to grab my mouse to move one of the windows on the computer screen, and I realised that yesterday I'd been recording, and I've got a sort of weird screwdriver here. So of course I went to grab the mouse, and then realised I was skimming around the desk with a screwdriver.
That is a comedic occurrence on a par with Victor Meldrew picking up a puppy rather than a phone.
Put in the name! I don't believe it, Margaret.
I don't know how he could have actually put his hands around a furry puppy and still think it was a phone, but it's a great comedy moment.
It is.
It's great.
It's Victor Meldrew. It's 4291.
Is that what his number was?
Yeah. So funny. I
love the fact you know that.
Well, it was the best thing the other day. I was in the pub with my friend Tom, and we were sitting chatting about something, and I used that as just a number combination in my head. I said, "Oh yeah, 4291." And he said, "Oh, it's Victor Meldrew's phone number." And I said, "You're the only person that's ever got that." Oh, I was so pleased. 4291.
Big Finish producer and writer and director John Ainsworth and I are friends of old, and we have there's a number we have in common, which is 236.
236.
Do you know what that's from?
No.
It's Fulton Mackay says it in
oh wow,
in Doctor Who and the Silurians, and it sounds like he's improvising in the background, and he says, "Remember 236 today, yes, 236. Don't forget that." And it becomes so I don't think he was making it up. He was just acting so well that it sounds like a bit of improv, because the 236 test or something becomes quite important later. But
I love stuff like that, though. Little things like that. It makes.
Well, John put it on their answer phone for years. So when you phoned up, you heard Fulton Mackay saying 236.
What a legend! What a legend!
Anyway, what have you been watching this week, Benji?
But
over the Christmas.
Before I tell that, we should probably announce what we're watching this week, actually, because we've not done that yet,
have we?
No, and I realised that just I looked at the screen. This week we're looking at New Scotland Yard, which I believe it came out in 1974. I'll double check that.
I thought it was 72.
It could be 70. I'll just have a look. Have I put TV series after it? Yes, you're right, 72. I apologise. It ran from 72 to 74.
Yeah, I know, and they did 4 series in 2 years.
Well, let's hope it gets a bit more action-packed towards the end.
Well, bizarrely, as someone pointed out on Facebook, the last series they replaced the leads with new people.
Really? That seems a bit...
So they did 3 series with one team and then 1 series with another team, and then it died.
Interesting enough as well, by the looks of it here, that one series only went for 7 episodes as opposed to the standard run of 13 that the previous 3 had as well. Interesting.
Right.
It's obviously very
halfway through.
It's very much on its last legs. Clearly, they say, "I'll give it 7 if it's not good."
They can't
chuck it.
learn their lines.
It's rubbish.
They keep arresting the wrong people.
Last night he arrested me, and I'm not even on the camera. But absolute load of old goodness. So
we'll be talking about New Scotland Yard.
What have we been watching this week? Well, interesting enough,
or over Christmas and New Year,
Well, I watched something really good yesterday, actually, which I've not seen it before, and I loved it. And it's called, what is it called? I've just got to double check. And Soon the Darkness.
Oh, I've heard of that. Now tell me about it.
So this was a film, it was on Talking Pictures TV, actually, and it was on Christmas Day.
Talking Pictures TV.
They put it on, I love it. They put it on Christmas Day. Goodness knows why. It was a rather wonderful gag, I think. But it's a really good thriller film with Pamela Franklin and Michelle Dautrice.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about these 2 girls who go on a cycling holiday to France.
Oh, yes.
And they have an argument and they split up, and then one of the girls, which is Michelle, she goes missing. And it's just a wonderful... I honestly can say it's one of the best thrillers I've ever seen, because it's quite a slow burner. Like, it's relatively slow, but because they're this girl is alone in France, and not many people over there speak English. You just feel so completely alone and with her, and so it's so out of control because you don't know who to trust.
Uh-huh.
Everybody in it is completely, you think, are they involved? Absolute class film. Like that is one I would give 5 out of 5.
I nearly recorded that one and I didn't. Isn't that annoying?
It's well worth a watch.
I hesitated over that, yeah. Although I set a couple of things to record on Talking Pictures because my son has commandeered the television to play Fortnite over the entire holiday. He's doing it now. I don't get to watch television anymore, except on my computer. But a couple of things I've recorded, I've gone back to watch them, and it says recording failed.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Well, why has that happened? Is that something to do with Talking Pictures, or I don't know?
I had a annoying thing that happened actually the other day. I taped right from the start all the Danger XUB stuff.
Oh yeah, UXB, I think.
UXB, I always say XUB. UXB. And when I went back, episode 1 and 2, something like episode 10, had just vanished. And I know they were there because I'd watched episode 1, and so goodness only knows what actually what happened to those. But it's just, first world problems, isn't it, really? I've just realised something else. Now, this actually is a really interesting fact for cult people. The film that I watched, And Soon the Darkness, was written by Brian Clemens and Terry Nation.
There you go.
I had no idea.
That's why it's classy. 2 masters of the thriller genre, you see. Oh,
it's filmed at Elstree and released, interestingly enough, by EMI.
EMI.
That's the reason why.
But yeah, I can't hear that without saying it.
I love it.
Singing it badly, obviously.
Have I watched anything else of any? I've been watching loads of the Twilight Zone because for Christmas I got the Blu-ray box set because I haven't wanted to buy them all because they only sold them individually before and it was just going to cost a fortune. And then I noticed on Amazon that they've got the whole series on Blu-ray for about 30 quid or something. And so I've now got them and absolute gold. I've just been loving watching the Twilight. They're all good as well. Even when you get one that's not quite as legendary as the others, I've been in awe of how lovely it is. And Luther, watched that last night. Cracking. Just so many good things. It's quite a good telly this Christmas.
Brilliant. I was slightly distracted by my wife texting me to say that she's going down the road to get a sandwich. Chicken or ham? What would you say?
Just chicken, or is there a type of chicken? Is it like a chicken, chicken tikka or chicken jerk chicken? Or, I mean, I go for chicken because I feel like ham, you can make that yourself. Like,
what out of thin air?
Well, what sounds more
just
attractive?
Rearrange some molecules.
But what sounds more attractive? Would you like a chicken sandwich? Would you like a ham sandwich? Now,
I have a chicken and salad sandwich. I don't have any of your fancy chicken tikka or jerk chicken. Sounds rude to me, but anyway.
But no, I go for the chicken or the tuna. Actually, tuna's my sandwich of
chicken
choice.
or ham, Benji.
Chicken,
tuna.
definitely. Just go chicken or go home.
Chicken or ham, Benji? Tuna.
Chicken or ham?
Egg, please.
Oh, no, never.
That's the one you're forced to eat on a train because it's the only sandwich that the onboard catering people have left.
I'd rather starve.
I've got an egg sandwich here, and I go, yeah, all right.
I don't mind
starving.
egg in like a breakfast context, but having an egg sandwich for me is like I'd rather boil my own head. It's just a horrible concept.
That's one of your favourite phrases, isn't it? You said that to me about one of the things that I had to watch over the the Christmas holiday, which was Bumblebee, the Transformers movie, and you said you'd rather boil your head in sulfuric acid. Happily,
yeah. It just doesn't appeal to me at all.
I did tell my son that, and he went, "What, really?" I went, "No, not really."
Yes, really. That's the honest truth. No, I don't go for things like that. I'm not big on... It's the same with like superhero films. If it's not Batman, I'm not really interested. And if it is Batman, I'm probably not interested. But I'm more interested in... I just don't go for it. I never have done, really. That's just me. Unless it's 1966 Batman, which I will watch
with
until
the
cows come home.
Spray, yeah. It's the bit I always remember. What have you? Are there any other things you wanted to talk about, or have I jumped in there with Bumblebee?
I'm just trying to think of things that I've watched over. Obviously, we can't go without congratulating you on a great Doctor Who.
Oh, thank you very much.
Absolute corker of a performance. And
yes, I was responsible for the entire thing.
Well, no, but it's I think it's my favourite Dalek story that I've seen in a number of years. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and
it
was left with a big smile on my face.
Well, I think I was pleased with how my stuff came out, so immodestly. So thank you very much.
Well, I
was moaning on social
actually.
media that when I just thanked people for being nice to me, you just get into a whole lot of trolling bile from people going on about how much they hate the series and la 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 la. Anyway,
you can't please everybody. The best thing I've seen is somebody on Twitter shared some posts from one of the Doctor Who forums from about 10, 12 years ago or something, of people just spewing the same sort of stuff. It never changes, and saying, well, never watch this again and all that. You think it never, people don't change. People like a good moan.
I don't know why people can't understand that. I can't, one way or another, I can't get involved in the debate. I mean, I'm in the show. I work on it. I can't. Exactly. I don't think it's right for me to sort of say to people, well, you should like it, it's just...
Of course, the second you start condemning something you work on,
I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't feel the impulse to do that. But equally, I don't think I should be going on and arguing with people. And the trouble is, if they post on my timeline about it, so I just had, I had to hide a couple of threads or delete them because I just thought, this was just a nice thread with me saying thank you to people, and people can't. They have to come on and go, yeah, well, it's only a voice, isn't it? And you're talking about him like he's some kind of legend, and it's nothing, And you go, thanks very much for your contribution.
But it's like if you put that in a real life perspective, it's like walking out the house, looking up and saying, "Oh, it's a beautiful day, isn't it?" And then some bloke from Scotland who you've never met, lives a million miles away, comes home and says, "Actually, it's nasty out there, isn't it? I hate the weather and I hate the sun." And you think,
yes.
well, who are you and why are you talking to me? And I've just declared that I think it's a lovely day. Don't come and tell me it's not a nice day. You really
the internet. Who knew? The internet has confused the difference between what should be kept private and what should be kept public, and people confuse the two all the time, and I'm sure we're guilty of it as well. And that's the difficulty. Conversations that people used to have down the pub or over a coffee, now they're having them publicly in front of the people they're talking about. I mean, they're all, this this podcast is about talking about creative stuff and airing our opinions, but we're not sending it to the people who make the TV series. We're not tracking down everyone who was involved in New Scotland Yard and making sure they get to hear this podcast because we're possibly going to be rude about it. It's just, that's the trouble. And I suppose we all, I was just saying, I don't think it's appropriate for people to say horrid things to me about something I've done, or rather, if they do say horrid things, how on earth am I supposed to react? I just get hurt. That's all you're doing. You're just hurting people when you say things to. I think it's fine to be rude about films and TV shows and say you think they're rubbish. Just don't say it to the people who made the blooming things.
Well, absolutely, and I think as well, it's all about broadcasting, isn't it? We make this and we put it out there, but by no means do we ask people to listen to it. We don't say you must listen to this whether you like it or not. If you listen to it, and then that's brilliant. If you don't, then don't worry about it. But then if we started appearing on things and just hassling people for no real reason about it, you think, well, why are you doing that? There's no need to do that. So
yeah, I mean, I think if you create something and you want an audience to watch it and you stick your head above the parapet, you deserve to get smacked in the face every now and again. I'm just saying that don't imagine for one moment that I like that, and that's not the reason I do it. Right, that debate is over. Bumblebee, everyone was saying it's the best of the Transformer movies. I think it probably is, but it's still pretty boring.
Is that the one with John Cena in it?
I don't know who that is.
He's a pro wrestler, massive jacked guy.
There is a big wrestling guy in it who's perfectly fine. I think the leading lady, I don't know what her name is, he said rather old-fashionedly, the leading lady, I thought she was excellent, and the only reason to watch it really because she's compelling. Yes, so I didn't fall asleep, but one of the reasons I didn't fall asleep because the plaza in Dorchester had industrial strength air conditioning. They clearly knew that the film was actually quite dull. They thought the only way we're going to keep the mums and dads awake is to blast the area with I literally had my scarf, gloves and hat on in order to that is no exaggeration. I know when some people say literally, they don't mean literally, but I do mean literally.
You were literally wearing your gloves.
I've been watching Luther, which there's someone talks about it on the Facebook page, which we'll read out in a minute, and I think they're spot on. I'm not sure I see the point in dramas about people being massively cruel and horrible to women. I've
not seen anything past episode 1, so in case you spoil it. But
I notice it in the last few series of Luther. I mean, I think great leading man, intriguing character and everything, and strong female characters as well. Not that that's my yardstick for something being good, but it's great that there are strong female characters. But I'm not sure how interested I am in the cruelty of crime. But anyway, there's something about it on Facebook in a minute. Bird Box, did you watch that?
It's on my list of things. I've not got around to Bird Box yet. But it's meant to be good, but not as good as the book, I've heard.
It's a horror sci-fi thing to explain. It's on Netflix. It's about people not being able to look at some alien weird threat without killing themselves. So the world gets taken over by something that makes people kill themselves if they look at it. So it's a bit like The Quiet Place, but with a different sense. And
it's pretty grim, isn't it?
It is pretty grim. And
you know
Jamie
what my
and
answer to that one is? Just don't look at it.
Jamie and I were talking about it, and we were... It's very good advice, actually. Jamie and I were talking about it, and he said, the trouble with it is there's no explanation. And I said, that's the difference between fantasy stroke horror and science fiction. Science fiction always has an impetus in the plot to explain and understand, whereas horror just goes, there's this thing. And fantasy says, there's this weird thing. And I think I prefer science fiction. So it was fine, though. It's entertaining. And Sandra Bullock, it's so difficult not to say Sandra Bollocks because that's what my wife calls her. Sandra Bullock is great in it. I think she's too old to have a child now. That's a controversial thing to say. Yet she has a child.
I think she probably is.
Yeah. But of course she looks much younger than her years. And then Bandersnatch, the interactive thing, which I thought for me raised the issue of, and I think this is what Charlie Brooker is sort of talking about and writing it, that interactive stuff is meant to give the audience more control. But for me, an interactive story, it makes you even more aware of the author controlling you. If you start watching, reading, listening to a story and you don't make choices during it, you just relax into that convention. But once they are choosing which choices you make, and it was very obvious with Bandersnatch which choices they didn't want you to make, I feel you feel less in control than you do when you watch something that's not interactive. But that's just my controversial views. But
also I think it's the choices that you make in it. You make them and you think it's going to go a certain way, and then you realise that your choice has an impact on other things, and it completely think, oh, that really didn't go the way I actually thought it would. But my only concern about Bandersnatch for me, and I loved it, and it was so my vibe, all that sort of old computer game sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially after I've been spending a lot of time playing over Christmas, playing the Super Nintendo from the early 90s. But the only thing I would say is that if somebody is mentally in a bad place and watched Bandersnatch and got involved with it, I could see how I just thought, I think if somebody was kind of fragile in their mental state, I think it could actually provoke and make people possibly become quite unwell. That was my only thought.
You could say that about any slightly disturbing drama, but I know what
absolutely.
you mean. Yeah, the actual involvement, the interactiveness of it might be difficult.
Well, I think that the reason I think that is just because, like, for example, the buzz around Bandersnatch, social media and everywhere is such that loads of people have been, who might not have seen Black Mirror before have jumped onto it. My parents included, actually. They said, we've heard about this thing Bandersnatch, want to give it a go. So I just think if there's somebody who's maybe a little bit fragile in their mental state, I just thought to myself, this could actually be really dangerous if you're not careful. But but that's if you understand Black Mirror, then absolutely that's what it's about.
It's a really good point
But that was the only thing I thought, and I'm not thinking that like this should be banned or anything. I just thought, wow, that's really interesting, but equally it's actually quite terrifying, But cracking experiment there, and a cracking way to change. And I tell you one thing I noticed was that on the thumbnail on Netflix, there's like a little star thing in the corner, and I thought to myself, I think I know what this is about, and I think that star is going to be a new thing on Netflix where they're going to start doing more things like this, more interactive ways of storytelling, because I thought that's going to be like like the Blu-ray side or the HD side. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think there'll be more for a variety of different things, because there is a lot of scope in what you could do with this formula.
Let's go on to the Facebook comments. Tom Boone says, Bandersnatch was very well produced, although I would have liked a bit more variety in the range of story conclusions available.
There's loads. There are loads, yeah. Absolutely. I
appear to be in the minority and not getting much enjoyment from Luther. I find twisted serial killers with limitless resources and luck a bit tiresome, asterisk, until it is time to wrap up the story and they get caught. It's a very good point. I think that's one of the problems, Twisted serial killers with limitless resources and luck.
I mean, the only thing I thought, having seen episode 1, is, like, how can you chase somebody who's definitely that person, and then suddenly realise that somebody literally kills themselves, and then it's somebody completely different. I just think that's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous.
Well, it gets more ridiculous than that. Tom goes on to say, still feel burnt by hard sun. That's a bit of a pun, isn't it? Because I thought that would be a science fiction story about the end of the world, but it was mostly about twisted serial killers with limitless resources and luck. I hope you may be encouraged to talk a bit about your great performance in Doctor Who too. We've done that, Tom. Thanks very much. With reference to Benji's 1980s song from before Christmas, has he heard Joe Cornish's incredible song? Have you heard that?
No, I've not.
It's really good. Go and look on the official. I illegally just play you a little bit.
When the world is like a huge potato and it looks as though you've had your chips.
That's very ABC, isn't it?
Yes. And they basically, the two singers end up having an argument about living with each other. And he says, "Stop interrupting me while I'm singing." And they sort of break up and then agree to stay together by the end of the song. Our favourite Tom Hodden says, "Luther is off to a cracking start for this series. I really liked Bird Box." There you go. Alex Pass said, "I did watch Box of Delights and a few Jerry Anderson Christmas and themed episodes. 'Twas the season and all that. Also the new Blu-ray releases of Quatermass and The Pit, and Peter Davison's first season of Doctor Who."
I've not got any of those Blu-ray releases yet. Are they? Is it worth it, picture-wise?
I can't see the point myself, but I'm a miserable old so-and-so. I've heard a lot about Bird Box and Bandersnatch, but like Benji, we'll probably get around to actually watching them in about 10 years' time.
Yeah, that's well, I do
you've watched Bandersnatch?
Wow. But yeah, Bird Box, that's one of those things. I'll put it on my list, but who knows?
Legion Henderson, I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly there. "Luther is cracking stuff. It's one of the only things me and the wife watch that we both like. I think Idris is a brill actor and she enjoys a good murder. What did I marry? Ha ha ha," he says. Chris Orton says, "The weirdest thing about New Scotland Yard was the way that the two leads were replaced by new ones for the fourth and final series." Andrew Wood says, "In the title sequence, the New Scotland Yard sign is rotating. I always wondered if there were slaves underground forced to cycle in a circle to power the sign under constant threat of flogging, or maybe a hamster wheel for 200 hamsters." Jonathan Rudderman says, "That one seems to have slipped by me, New Scotland Yard, but in my defence, I have been watching Colonel March of Scotland Yard on cable from the mid-1950s, featuring Boris Karloff. They're good little mysteries." Carl Bates says, "Looking forward to some normality after the festive shenanigans." Bill Walker says, "Need to catch up with Luther." And that is John Woodvine, he says, about the Benji and Nick show cover with John Woodvine from New Scotland Yard. Lance Harrington says, "Never heard of it and no idea what those other things you mention are either." Doesn't know about Luke, because I mentioned Luther and Bandersnatch and Bird Box. "Still, I bet it's a cracking podcast as always," says Lance. Thanks, Lance.
That's the type of attitude we like.
Phil Markham says, "I've been a huge fan of Luther since it began, and I feel this series is lacking something, and now I'm just relying on scare factor to keep everyone out on." Should be a space there, honestly, Phil. "One saving grace is that it's nice to see the return of characters from early series, though no spoilers." Michael Gibbons says, "Weird, I've just recently put New Scotland Yard on my to-purchase list on Amazon." There you go. Thank you for writing those comments, folks.
It's a good amount of comments there. Very nice, very
Benji,
nice.
Benji, would you like to do the first email?
I'd love to read out the new email. This is an original message, but that's just the header there of when you paste an email. Subject in this one is Happy New Year. The date for this one is the 3rd of the 1st, 2019. The time, 59 minutes past midnight. And this one is from David Steele. Here we go. So, dear Nice and Benghazi, Happy New Year. I've actually been meaning to write to you for a couple of weeks now, but I've been so busy with work that I've struggled to find the time. Apologies. I just wanted to tell you that after your discussion of Escape into Night, I bought a copy of the DVD because it sounded absolutely brilliant. Wow, that's not the type
we really slagged it off.
Yeah, I was going to say, cool, they'll buy anything these days. I'd only vaguely heard of it before, but after the podcast the other week, I knew that I had to seek it out. It sounds like the sort of thing that I would have loved as a kid if I'd seen it on TV.
That's true.
Probably as much as I loved Into the Labyrinth.
Another load of rubbish.
So not as bad as Escape into Night, in my opinion. I also enjoyed your chat on...
I'd prefer Escape into Night to Into the Labyrinth.
It's a tough cookie, isn't it? So it says here, I also enjoyed your chat on Columbo, which is a series that I'm aware of, but don't think I've ever actually seen a full episode of it.
What?
It was good to hear you talk about an American series, as most of the shows you've talked about have been British.
They are British.
I wonder if you consider tackling episodes of The Incredible Hulk, or even a real favourite of mine called Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that sounds rather fun.
Yes, it's quite good, that, actually. Yeah.
I think you both enjoy it. It's a program about a reporter in 70s Chicago who investigates werewolves, aliens, zombies, and shady government experiments.
It's quite good, yeah.
The best episode is called Horror in the Heights and guest stars Phil Silvers.
Bilko. Sergeant Bilko.
There we go. Like old Doctor Who, the effects often aren't the best, but the charm and humour in the scripts more than make up for it.
You've not heard of Bilko, have you?
I've heard of Bilko, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Oh, it was a hugely, insanely popular American comedy series starring Phil Silvers, who was a huge star. Anyway, who turned up in a Carry On film. Carry On, Follow That Camel.
Oh, I think that was on. This Christmas, actually.
Of course, it had to be.
It had to be. They did a Carry On day, I think. Well, I taped them all, and then the next day, came downstairs and just went, never gonna watch them. Never gonna delete them all. Just before writing this email, I was on the network website and bought Sky and the Jensen Code.
Get in
the sale. Again, prompted by your podcast coverage. Maybe networks should have you on commission.
They should.
I think they should, to be fair. The amount of money... Well, I don't know how much they actually make of us, but, you know, who knows?
It must be literally quids.
Well, it's quids that they didn't have before. Nice little reference there to Dominic. Anyway, I hope you're both well. Keep up the good work. I'm so grateful for the laughs your podcast provide. Even if I get funny looks sniggering in the middle of Asda. Love it. If you're in Asda, tell you one thing. Cheeky little tip here. If you go to the ready meal section, you know, where you get, say you're on a night out, you need a quick meal, go to the ready meal section, you mug yourself off. Go to the frozen section, right? They have them like a lot cheaper, exactly the same product. There you go. There's a little tip from Benji there, who has the ready meals from Asda sometimes. Don't know what that says about me. I only have them when I go to my friend's house though, because it's
whatever.
I'm sorry. Very best regards, David Steele.
Sent from Liberal Party HQ, he said, because of the silly joke I always make that the former leader of the Liberal Party in the UK was called David Steele, but this isn't David Steele.
Maybe it is. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty certain it isn't. Original message, yes. A coincidence or copying, he says. This was sent last year on the 30th of December. It's 6:02 in the evening from Ian Humphreys, who I think won a competition on the Big Finish podcast recently.
I believe he did, yes.
Hello, Benji and Nick and Jamie, for it may be he... No... Can't read.
It may be
that he may be able to shed some light. Why? There was too many he's and maybes for my brain. Not for. It's a perfectly fine bit of writing, Ian. I've recently been watching episodes of The Secret Service. Cue bouncy theme tune.
Oh, I love it so much. Oh
and
no,
I was
you killed the vicar.
Oh, hiddly dowdy, fleedly bow. And I was struck by an intriguing thought, and I wondered if any of you could shed some light on the matter, hence the greeting to Jamie as well. The production / transmission dates for the series are end of 68 and beginning 69, around the time that work was starting on John Pertwee's tenure as the Third Doctor. We thought quite. In The Secret Service, the vicar, played by Stanley Unwin, that well-known intellectual, drives around in a souped-up vintage yellow roadster, here a Model T Ford. And a few months later, the Third Doctor is driving around in a souped-up vintage yellow roaster. Roaster chicken.
Roast chicken sandwich.
Or ham. It is purely coincidence. Is it purely coincidence? Why can't I read? Or do you happen to know if there was any element of copying the idea from one production to the other? We'll ask Jamie about this. Remember to ask him. I have asked him, and I can't remember what his answer was. Just thought I'd float that one your way to see if you had any thoughts. Best wishes, Ian Humphreys. P.S. Just watched the DVD extra on the Sharda box set of 30 Years in the TARDIS from 1993. There was a brief interview with Jerry Anderson accompanied by a very young-looking Jamie. Sent from the headquarters of Bishop. Top secret.
Oh, well, we got one here. Original message, subject Alien England, which, if you don't know what that is, last week's podcast was an Alien England edition, where you get to hear a little exclusive there of an original series, isn't it, Nick? Is it a Red Ray Gun original?
Yes, that's what I did.
Very exciting stuff. Well, here it is.
Glad
it was
you liked
sent
it.
on the 30th, the 12th, 2018, 1340. That wasn't the year, that was the time. From Nathan Raspin. Hello, my name is Nath, and I'm an avid listener of both the Benji and Nick Show and the Big Finish podcast. And I've just finished listening to Alien England, so I wanted to give my approval of the pilot. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I was on the edge of my seat when the pilot moved and didn't want it to end. So I would love for it to be made into a full audiobook and would purchase immediately. Keep up the great work. Yours sincerely, Nath.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks.
Well, Nath wasn't the only one as well, because on the Facebook I saw lots of people commenting about it as well and enjoying it. So, yeah, absolutely. Great response, I think, Nick.
It is, yeah. I'd really love to talk about my own work a bit more, but unfortunately, Jamie's just informed me by text that he's going out in 10 minutes' time, so I'm phoning him now.
Oh.
It's connecting. Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for... sorry if I delay you leaving.
Not at all.
Because you'll just go.
I was just eating some nuts. Would you like one?
Oh. What? Oh, God, it's really funny. That box of nuts looked like it was... The angle you showed it to me, it looked like... it was some... It didn't look like nuts. It looked... Oh, that's better.
What type of nuts are they?
Well, we've got every type, basically.
Macadamia?
You've eaten all of those, have you?
No, this is like... I've eaten it over a week. But I've got
I don't believe you.
almonds, pistachios... what are they? Is that macadamia?
I don't know what those are called, but I don't like them much. I mean, I'll eat them. Because frankly, I'll eat anything. So don't stand still for too long.
I've got them, thanks. So yes, hello, Happy New Year.
Oh, thanks. To all our listeners from Jamie. Listen, that question I emailed you about the yellow car and the Secret Service, I can't remember what your reply was.
'Cause I mentioned this before to people that it was about the same time, and actually I think probably they made the decision and started filming with the Secret Service first.
Oh.
I think. So maybe Doctor Who copied Secret Service.
Or maybe they just happened to... It's a coincidence, isn't it, really? Because they wouldn't... I mean, they wouldn't have known about each other, really, would they?
You don't know.
I don't know, was that the point by which there's some kind of interaction between the model unit at the BBC and Century 21? Because certainly...
They used to buy stuff off Century 21, didn't they?
Yeah, but I don't think it got used until much later. So I don't know. There may well have been. It's a nice thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thought.
It's true. Some thought went into that thought.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the idea of it.
Was there something else we were going to ask, Benji?
Nothing listed down, but I can always ask a question.
Okay, Benji's going to ask you a random question, which I'll edit it together, and it will sound like you can hear him.
Brilliant.
Okay, random question generator.
Oh no.
Oh, this is a good one. What age would you consider somebody to be old?
Well, doesn't that change as you get older anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, I think of somebody as being old until they're in their late 60s or early 70s now.
Is the right answer.
But I used to think old was like 40.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
And that's not last year. That's when I was a teenager.
I used to think old was 26.
And that's when you were 36.
That's when I was 21.
Yeah.
I think when I was at drama school, I think I had a friend who was like 2 years older than me, and I thought he was as old as the hills, and looked up to him like he was a great guru of and had experienced all of life.
It's funny, isn't it? See, it also depends on the person a bit, because Denise Breyer is 90, coming up for 92, 91.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I don't think of her as old as such.
Yeah.
Old has a certain kind of decrepit connotation.
And she's as bright as a button, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly. And people like, David Graham, Nicholas Parsons.
Yes, true.
In
Yes,
their
David
90s.
Graham in particular, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're not the traditional definition of old. Anyway, this has gone deeper than Benji was probably hoping for. Sorry, Benji.
No,
Well,
it's
I mean,
exactly what I was hoping for.
Happy to oblige.
And I've been watching, I've mentioned this before, old stuff where, what was I watching? Gideon's Way, where an old lady was beaten up by youths, and they show, the poor old lady, she was 50 if she was a day. I thought, blimey, she's 7 years younger than me, and she's already... But of course, and you look at people in series like that, made in the early to mid 60s, and people in their 50s, they are the equivalent of people in their 70s now. People didn't live as long, and people reach 50 and they were just on the scrap heap.
Exactly, whereas now, people in their 30s and 40s will probably be working into their 80s.
Yeah.
Horrific.
So,
But although I do like to claim oldness for my own, because some people complained that Big Finish was being run by middle-aged men. I said, I'm not middle-aged, I'm old. I'm part of a minority. Don't oppress me.
right, I'll redefine old back to over 50 in that case.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
I think apparently I'm going to have to work until I'm 68, but, as my mother said to me the other day, you're never going to resign or retire. Resign! You're never going to retire, are you? Which is true, I'm not.
Don't worry, Benji's going to have to work to 100, so good luck, Benji.
Yeah, you can never stop.
I know. There's not even a laughing matter about it, is there? It'll just be me with a pitchfork hammering into mines or something.
There's one up here where I live. He's welcome to come down and take some coal if he wants.
There you go. There's a
Thank you
job
very
for
much.
you.
Thank you very much, Governor. How many
So,
shillings
listen.
will I get for that?
Okay, how many shillings will you get for that?
I'll have to look at the current day rate. I've got no idea. Not a lot.
You're having to go now. Where's it you're going? Can you not say?
It's a secret mission that I can't tell you about.
Okay.
But it's not very exciting.
Okay. One last thing.
Public consumption.
One last thing. We were talking earlier about it, and I feel like I'll ask this question and then retire for half an hour. Bandersnatch.
Yes. That's not a question, that's a word.
Bandersnatch?
Yes. I really enjoyed it, and I was looking up the original game which inspired the whole thing, because there was a game being made in the 80s called Bandersnatch.
Wow.
Which was a very complex thing, and ended up being... It caused the close down of the studio responsible for its development.
Wow.
And then it was later released, and it was so complex that it required a hardware add-on, so that was rather exciting. And
So
it
you
was,
sort of
amazing.
based it on fact then?
yeah, most games at the time cost between £6 and £7.20, and Bandersnatch was going to cost between £30 and £40
Wow.
That's crazy.
because of the hardware thing, and then the company ran into financial difficulties and it was never released, but it was later released as something else. I can't remember what the title is, but if you look up Bandersnatch the game on Wikipedia, you'll find out. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and I know that you have different opinions about why one enjoys it and whether fiction should be a passive or active thing, but there's another discussion for another day.
Well,
Another
it was
podcast.
it was originally released on Spectrum, interestingly.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. For a Jerry Anderson connection. Sort of.
Dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, look, I'll let you go. Thank you for another interesting interlude.
Thanks for including me in your interlude.
Do-do-do-do. Yeah. Good.
Have a nice podcast.
Cheerio.
Cheerio!
Bye.
Bye. Of course, I've written in the script here, main topic, box of delights. I haven't corrected it to
Lazy work. How dare you.
lazy. Well, so we're now going on to the main topic, which is New Scotland Yard. Benji, you chose this because you liked the theme tune.
The funny thing about the theme tune is I did a bit of digging for the podcast, actually, because I wanted to know whether the theme tune was an exclusive theme tune to the series or whether it was just library music, and I have this to report. It was in fact library music released in 1971 on the Standard Music Library. It was on the album Various / Moog /activity/travel, and the song is called Eurocrat by Max Harris. So it's not even like the new Scotland Yard theme tune. It's just like a bit of stop music, which probably makes a lot of sense when you kind of watch the program. Now, I'm not saying this is bad, because I did enjoy it actually, but I would say it's not bad. It's just dull, and the opening sequence is incredibly misleading, because you see this great, this really cool opening sequence of cars whizzing round an old Morris Minor, London, and it's big and it's bold and there's guns and it's cool and it's exciting. And
are there guns?
I'm sure there's a gun, or maybe that's no, there isn't a gun. There's just a picture of a gun on the box that I've got on the back. But there's lots going on. And you think, cool, this is going to be, sit down, brace yourself for a day in the life of John Woodvine as Detective Chief Superintendent Kingdom. But what you actually get is a very sort of slow-paced, talky, relatively dull, but surprisingly challenging program set inside an office, basically, with not a lot going on. And I'm not, it drags on a bit, because it does go on for about 50 odd minutes, doesn't it?
It's an hour. It would have been an hour slot, so it's something slightly lower than that, because it was on ITV, and there would have been 3 commercial breaks, I think.
That's correct. Yeah, all of which use different parts of the theme music to
that suddenly bursts in out of nowhere. You've had sort of this incredibly dry as dust drama with creaking sets and wobbling cameras, and then suddenly you just get
I mean, the thing is, the most interesting bit in this whole episode was the fake news report, which I thought was actually quite well done and interesting.
It was all in black and white. It was right at the beginning. You thought, oh, is this going to be in black and white then?
It's all in black and white, but then you think to yourself, oh, blimey, because they show somebody dying on there, and then somebody go, oh my God, he's dead. You think they wouldn't put that on the news, would they? Especially not then. Unlike now, which they probably would. They probably plaster it all over social media as well.
They just blot out people's faces.
Yeah, they do something like that, and they'd freeze frame it at that point or something. But yes, dry is the word I would use. Not terrible, because I thought that the storyline was actually quite challenging and interesting to watch.
Yes. But it was definitely adult, wasn't it?
Oh goodness, yeah. I mean, all thoughts of exciting police-based action goes straight out the window. One thing I would say is, if you watch something like The Professionals, you go away from it thinking, right, well, I want to join CI5. I want to do what they're doing, jumping around, jumping through windows, and all the, nip into the pub before chasing a criminal. On this, there's not a lot. You don't come away from it and think to yourself, oh, I really want to join New Scotland Yard. Because it looks incredibly...
Because life is boring. And John Woodvine looks like he probably has some awful personal problems that you probably never go into, but he's clearly not happy with himself, is he? He's pretty darn miserable and loses his temper quite a bit.
He does. He absolutely. And he holds himself. He looks... he sort of walks in and says, I'm, Detective Superintendent... Kingdom, where's my office? You think, blimey, this guy's miserable, isn't he? And you wouldn't want him at the office party, would you?
This is the thing. I mean, let me say this. Yes, it's absolutely dry as dust, multi-camera, studio-based drama. Benji, this is what virtually all television used to be like in 1972. It was the exception that it was action-packed and... bursting with music. Most drama on television in the UK was like this in 1972. So this wouldn't have been, anything out of the ordinary. And what they went for was the acting and the writing. And the writing is about issues, and it's not about action. And it's interesting about the sort of the racism and anti-racism stuff going on in it, which is quite bold. One of the policemen makes a point to one of the suspects that to one of the witnesses, who's a very radical left-wing, revolutionary. He says, some of us in the police force do actually agree with your views. We just don't agree with the way you go about it. It was an interesting point I thought, to make. They don't portray all policemen as sort of right-wing oppressive so-and-sos, which a lot of drama falls into the trap of. So it is so, it sounds patronising to say, it's so of its time.
Definitely.
And it's pretty well done. There's nothing awful about it. There's nothing that they succeed in what they set out to do. I mean, interesting that it's an interesting little quirk, and this is really not of any interest at all, that the news footage is in black and white, because when coloured television first started in the UK, a lot of the news footage continued to be in black and white,
as it would
most
be.
People didn't have coloured TVs. Certainly, BBC South's news bulletin was in black and white right up until about 1976, I think. Even though, so when you went to the local news, suddenly the programme went to black and white. I only know this through other people because we had a black and white television until about 1977, I think. Well, no, 78? It was episode 1 of The Deadly Assassin was the first Doctor Who episode I saw at home in colour.
Very brown story once it was in colour anyway. It didn't do
brown.
much
When
for
I
the
say
colour
colour,
spectrum.
I mean brown.
It was just, even the jungle, and and that was just a brown sort of screen, wasn't it? Really. I think the only colour I remember is the locomotive.
Yes.
But I think
So there you are.
I think it's as a piece. I think it actually is quite challenging, and like I'm intrigued by the chap in it who's obviously he's suffering grief and trauma, PTSD from the whole event, but you're not actually quite sure where he kind of stands on it, because he seems outwardly not to be particularly.
Well, the guy who's accused of killing one of the demonstrators.
Yeah.
And that's played by, what's his name, Brian Marshall, is it? Who was like a real big face on television. I don't mean his face was enormous. He was just in a lot of stuff. And here he's interestingly cast. I think he's cast as someone older than he was. His wife seems older than him, which isn't abnormal or weird, but they mostly cast marriages with younger wives or wives the same age as husbands in those days. And I realised that they're trying to make Brian Marshall play someone older than him, because he played a lot more sort of younger, dashing parts on television. And he plays this sort of miserable so-and-so who's obsessed with horses and doesn't like people. Is it a fake moustache he has?
I actually think it might be real. I actually think it could be a real moustache.
We must make this a section of the podcast. Fake moustache or real?
Moustache or real? Well, the woman with the moustache, definitely fake. I was quite surprised when she came out with the full beard. But no, I mean, I New Scotland Yard, to give it its dues, like you say, it does its job really well. I'm intrigued to see what other episodes do, because I think there is a lot you could do with it. I just think it's. I think, to sum it up, actually, I just think it doesn't set the world on fire.
That's perfectly.
I think that's it. It's nothing sensational, as my friend Jürgen said when my friend Chris in Germany bought a new coat. He said, "How'd you like my new coat, Jürgen?" And he went, "It's nothing sensational." A crippling review from Jürgen there.
It is nothing sensational. That is New Scotland Yard. I want Andrew Smith to write in and tell us what he thinks of New Scotland Yard in terms of the realism of it. I hope you're listening, Andrew. So please let us know. Ex-policeman Andrew Smith. I know that's not your real name. What's his real name, Benji?
Bernard Hankshaw. Of course it is. That's his new name.
That's right, yes.
It's a good, reliable name, that. So you don't meet many Bernards, but when
it's
you do...
It's not his surname that's different. He only changed his first name. Bernard Smith.
Bernard Smith. But
anyway.
It's a cool one. I don't regret buying the DVD, because I get to watch that theme tune on repeat forever.
I mean, I will. I'm glad I didn't have to buy all the series. It's only that series I'll watch. But it is interesting that they recast it. I wonder what happened. Why do they recast it by the final series and do a short one? Who knows? If you know, let us know.
It says on Wikipedia here, it says the series, scheduled on a Saturday night, failed to match the ratings of its more glamorous midweek sister programme, Special Branch.
Ah, yeah.
So maybe they thought, we need to give it a bit more of a Special Branch kind of vibe.
Well, Special Branch started out like New Scotland Yard. Multi-camera, studio-bound, quite dull. And then they revamped it and put George Sewell. They got rid of Darren Nesbitt and they put George Sewell in the lead and made it a film series with, stock incidental music. It was very much the forerunner of the Sweeney. But I think I've spoken about this before.
So I suppose really what I would take a guess that they tried to do a Special Branch with it and failed.
Do you reckon that the fourth series is on film or something? And
I reckon they thought, what, we're losing out the Special Branch, so let's try and give them what people like about Special Branch, and I don't know, maybe try and do it better or something. But obviously, people aren't going to suddenly switch off, are they?
Well, I wonder whether they did change the production.
Let's have a look on YouTube just to see how
on YouTube.
New Scotland Yard Series 4.
John Woodvine, by the way, did you ever see An American Werewolf in London?
Yes.
He played the policeman in American Werewolf in London.
He always plays policeman, doesn't he?
Yeah,
really?
And so I just thought he was sort of reprising his role here.
Well, he's. I'm sure. I just want to double check this before I declare it, but I'm fairly certain that he was in. I can't remember its name now. The
internet's a wonderful thing if you can. Go on.
You know, Eric Clapton did this Edge of Darkness.
Oh, yes.
Yes, he was. He was in Edge of Darkness as well. Chief Superintendent Ross in Edge of Darkness. Because he always just plays those type of roles, I think.
Yes, he's got that sort of strange sort of stare and kind of... And of course he was in the Armageddon Factor and Doctor Who. Sharp!
Well, I can confirm to you that it's not changed to film... but it's a little bit more ambitious. I mean, there's a bit more going on. It's certainly in more locations, and the sets look a little bit sort of more expanded. But ultimately, it looks just like Corrie, actually, to be honest, of that time.
Coronation Street, a soap opera.
It looks very, it looks very Corrie-like, and believe me, I know because I've watched an awful lot of Coronation Street. Yeah, obviously, whatever they did, they didn't bring it to film, I can tell you that. But somebody in the comments here says, that was awesome! Awesome in capital letters. I have the first 3 series of New Scotland Yard, and I have never seen this series of season 4 before. Could you share more? There we go. So, didn't move to film is the answer to that question. Thank you,
Benji. It's so good that you're here. Otherwise, it would just be the And Nick show.
The And show.
There we are. I'm giving it 3 exclamation marks.
Yeah, 3 is a solid one from me. I thought that this morning, coming into the podcast, I thought that I'll give it a 3. Yeah.
I'll give it a 3.
I'll give it a 3. Doesn't need a 2. But it certainly doesn't warrant a 4.
4 is right out. 3, excepting that thou then proceedeth to 3.
Misquoting the Holy Grail there. Yeah. So there we go. I don't think there's anything much else to talk about except decide next time's topic. So it'll be the 13th of January will be the next podcast. I mean, we could do Special Branch. Have we done Special Branch before?
We've not done Special Branch before, no.
Yeah, well, what we want to do is the first episode of the George Sewell Special Branch.
So then let's have a look at the episode guide.
You'll love the theme tune. It's
cracker, isn't
it? And there's a sort of stripper dancing girl with feathers who reveals herself. But luckily the exposure of the camera is all blasted out, so her
all the dads at home going, oh, for goodness sake,
I didn't get to see anything naughty.
I only tune in for that one. Blimey.
I imagine a lot of men leant forward and turned the contrast down just to see what they could spy out there.
Classic. I love those old tellies.
And now for all dirty old men, now on ITV,
the Dirty Old Men Hour. So the first episode of Series 3 of Special Branch is A Copper Called Craven.
Oh,
which I
well, that was the
presume
name of his character.
is his character, yeah. So, okay, well, we'll do Special Branch then. Excellent.
Okay, well, there we are. Just a couple of things to tell you as we move closer to the microphone. Don't forget to write in to Network Video and tell them to sponsor us. So I'm only buying this because of the Benji and Nick show. I must have a word with them, actually. And also, if you want to email us, please do email us at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, and we'll have a chat about your email and probably read it out. You know, we really appreciate all the feedback we get, and thank you for all of you who enjoyed Alien England. At some point, I will get round to doing more of that. Shall I tell you a quick thing about Alien in England?
Yeah, why not? I think you said Alien India.
I don't know what I was about to say. I gave myself a challenge to see what I could achieve in a day, and that's what Alien England was. I started writing it at 8 o'clock in the morning, stopped writing it at 1 o'clock, and did the post-production edit in the afternoon. It did take me a couple of other bits and bobs over the next couple of days to just add bits of music in. But yeah, so basically that was a day's work. I just sat down and thought, what am I going to write about? And I wrote that.
That's incredible. That really is cool. That's amazing, though, how things like that, you know, what you can do creativity-wise.
And I have written a bit more, but I was thinking of it being a drama more, but then that costs a lot of money to make, doesn't it?
You should set it. You should do like we did that with them when we recorded the Zigster stuff. When we were writing the album, we would set ourselves a challenge that we would write it and record it all in one day, often in an afternoon. And so the whole album is pretty much, now obviously we're doing it properly and taking time to record, but the demo album is all done in every song was a day. So maybe that could be the running thing. Just challenge yourself, Nick.
Yeah. It's just finding the time, isn't it? I did have to plan ahead and find this particular time. I said, right, today I'm going to do this. Today I'm going to do some colouring in. And by the way, last bit of news, hold the front page. Jamie, some time ago now, texted me after our little chat to say, Alexa is currently telling me about Bandersnatch. I didn't ask her. Scary.
Oh, that is really freaky.
He had a bit of interaction. Yes.
Oh, I don't like that.
Until next time, folks.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk!